Hi everyone, welcome to a new live stream. And today we're going to be comparing Figma and Sketch. So, as someone who's been using both applications for many years, in fact, I've been blogging about Sketch about almost 10 years ago, right before applications that were focused on user interface design were popular. um, we were all using Photoshop at the time, and now we're all moving towards a UI application such as Adobe XD, such as Sketch, such as Figma, which right now is the hottest one. Now, what is interesting and what is happening right now is Sketch is updating itself, and it just came out with a huge update, and now they have collaboration, and they have this beautiful promo video where hopefully it's not going to get into the way of the sound, but it's really beautiful. They have a beautiful landing page. Look at how the background changes in terms of colors as you view the video. And, it's really exciting. They've been bringing a lot of updates, and now you can start collaborating. So this is the new big feature, and you can now work just the same way as in Figma. You're going to be able to invite people from your team, as you can see from here, and collaborate in real time. So content editor, designers, developers can come in, and they're going to be able to work on the same file. So that's really exciting. So yeah, definitely check it out. Their new website is absolutely stunning, and you're gonna kind of learn a lot more about Sketch itself. Sketch has been around for a while, way longer than Figma, and of course Photoshop way longer than Sketch. And Figma about the same as I think as Adobe XD. So Sketch is definitely the most mature one in the market. But maturity does not necessarily mean the best one, which is why we're going to be comparing the two of them, because, to be honest, Figma has been killing it. And disclaimer, I've been using far more Figma lately, but before using Figma, I was using Sketch for, 5 years. And this video is not sponsored by any mean from either of those tools, so I'm going to try to give you an impartial opinion on both, and you're gonna have to make your own opinions, of course, do your own research. And so let's take a look at both applications. So you have Sketch here, which is now interestingly moving to subscription in the future, and then you have Figma. So Figma is all browser based, and maybe someone can correct me, but from the copy that they have on their website, they seem to be working in the browser version of the application. So, I think that's what's coming, but someone can correct me on this one, because it's a huge difference to be able to work in the browser versus to work in a native app. Because as much as I love working on the native app, there are definitely things that I prefer in the browser, namely to be able to share your documents quite easily, to be able to install things no matter which computer you're using, and to be able to work across the different platforms such as Windows. So those have become necessary. Something that we've been really used to lately as a team. But that being said, if you're an individual as a designer, Sketch is going to be amazing, right? Like if you don't need to work in a team environment, you don't need to collaborate in real time. Even though they do bring collaboration, we just went through quite some tremendous steps as a team just to be able to share the document. So for example, when I share a document to the cloud, so let me show you. So yeah, I'm going to focus on the collaboration first, because that's the first thing we're trying to experience at the moment. Nobody really has a lot of experience in terms of the collaboration aspect. This is really new. It just came out this week, or at least, Okay, so now we have collaboration working, but we definitely had to go through quite a few steps. So for example, my teammate had to update Sketch to the latest version, had to be connected to their Sketch account. They had to go to Sketch and open the file from Sketch versus the browser, because it's a bit confusing right now. You have to open Sketch in the cloud, but the cloud itself is not the browser, the design tool, right? It's not the same as Figma, where you can open either in the browser or in a Mac app, and it won't make a difference. But in Sketch, if you open in the browser or in the design tool, it's a huge difference. And we were quite confused at first. So this is going to take some time for your team to onboard this experience. But I think once you do, as you can see, we had Surani just had her mouse and it was beautiful. She's able to edit on the same file at the same time. So this is working and this is really exciting. I think this is a great step for Sketch. We're really excited for them to bring a lot of these much needed features that have become standard in the field. So yes, I agree. We have one comment here that says dark mode is much needed in Figma. I agree. Everyone that I've talked to really wants a dark mode version of Figma. I don't know why it's taking them so long, but this is really annoying, like the white here and the white here. And a lot of people are really used to dark mode nowadays. In fact, my whole Mac system is in dark mode 24/7. And from my audience, a lot of people tell me that they have light sensitivity and they work at night, for example, which means dark mode is so essential to their workflow. So that is a huge plus for me from Sketch. So on top of that, they use the the native dark mode. So this is a plus for Sketch for sure. Like, it's absolutely beautiful if you compare the UI of Sketch versus the UI of Figma, right? And you have this translucency. It works both light mode and dark mode, and yeah, it's great. In terms of UI, I think Sketch is killing it. They do have a bit of an issue here, probably because they just released a new version. So yeah, collaboration, I would say Figma wins by far, because Figma has been starting out with the real-time collaboration. They have matured over the past 2 years, and you can share anything you want on any screen, on any computer, on any platform such as Windows and Mac, and in the browser or the Mac app or the Windows app, and anyone is going to be able to open the file, inspect it, or edit it if they have the permission. So they have that holistic experience really come together. And I love Figma for that. So for example, if you are browsing all the files in your teams, it's really easy. Versus in Sketch, it's a bit disjointed, because if you want to open the files, you have to know the difference between, let's say, the cloud files versus the local files. And also, when you copy the link, right, and you share that with your team, they open that in the browser. They don't open it in Sketch. They actually open that like this. This is what they see, and it's really confusing, because what if they want to edit? There's no button that says, okay, open it in Sketch. Oh, there you go. Okay, there's a button. I just noticed it. So it's a little bit disjointed. It can be a lot better, and I think this is what they're working on, and that's why we're seeing a little bit of the copy going on with Mac only license versus versus like maybe I believe that I read a lot of stuff saying it's going to be browser based and stuff like that. So I might be wrong, but I think this is where they're going. And likewise with all of this in Figma, you can add comments to your teammates. You can tag your teammates directly in the design tool. So for example, I can look at my teammates' work and this is all done in vector, and if I want to comment it, it's all here. Versus in Sketch, if I want to do that, then I would have to go to the browser version, and then I would have to comment it in the browser version, and there's a lot of back and forth. So I have to, comment here. I go to this and then write a comment from here. So yeah, the experience can definitely be better. So yeah, like I said, Figma wins this one. And so far, in terms of UI, I would say that Sketch wins this one. Now, let's take a look at the plugins, because the plugins is something that I'm really passionate about ever since the Sketch came out with plugins. So if you want to install plugins, the first thing you want to do in Sketch is to go to Preference, and here you have the tab where you can customize your preferences, but also you can go to Plugins, Data, and Libraries. Now let's start with plugins. A few notable ones that we love to use is Runner, which allows you to easily have commands in Sketch. This has been around for a while, so Figma is starting to have it, and it's really good. I mean, it's such a good thing that Figma and these other tools and apps, they start to embrace this sort of workflow. Obviously, we have Angle, which is made by us for the mockups, and Unsplash and so on. So Unsplash, you don't really need it because Sketch has something really cool called Data. I'm going to show you later. But if you want to get more plugins, you click on Get Plugins, and you're going to go to their website, and here you're going to find the feature plugins. And so they have a really massive community for plugins, and they also have been around for a long time, so they've been sort of like moving and maturing over the years, starting from a more native development for the plugins to a more, I think, JavaScript-oriented plugins. There are some power to those, so such as for Angle, we were able to do something more interesting, versus in Figma, we have to rely on an API. So there are some key differences there. I'm not going to go over the details, but what I can say is that both are really interesting, okay? And if you want to browse the plugins here on Sketch, they have really good ones, such as Start for contrast ratio. Figma has also the same plugin, Overflow, Chart, and a bunch of others. So you can search them. I think they have official ones, and you can also search, I think, here. So, for example, Vectory is really good for 3D mockups. And but as you can see, the marketplace is quite different as well. So in Figma, you're going to be able to go to the community, which is still in beta, but I hope they're going to launch this soon. But what I love about Figma recently, at least, is that they really work hard on the community aspect, which Sketch hasn't yet to do that. So they have users, they have followers, users with followers, they have like recent material from each of those creators, and you're going to be able to follow them, you're going to be able to download the most recent files. So it's all together in their app, and I think that's really fantastic. Everyone used that, including myself, downloading a lot of these UI kits from a lot of teams, design systems, wireframes, UI kit. Figma likes to launch new documents to be able to teach you how to use variants, for example, how to use prototyping. So it's absolutely fantastic, the way that Figma does it. And they also have their plugins here. They have ratings. They have the number of downloads. It's really well done. And you have access to the creators. The only thing that I would wish where this community, where it should go in the future, is where creators can somehow get more credit or somehow monetize for. I mean, this is why I love YouTube where YouTube is going is that they allow creators to monetize on the content, versus I believe that as a design community, we're not there yet. And I feel like we should reward all of these creators because they do absolutely amazing work creating these beautiful plugins, or at least we should be able to create maybe a paid version of that plugin, and to be able to have some sort of a pay to use for premium features versus free features. If these communities, either from Sketch or from Figma, can get there, I think we're going to have an even more thriving community for all of these amazing resources such as wireframes, design systems, plugins. I know for a fact that I would definitely participate more if I know that I can really spend a lot of time supporting the hundreds of hours necessary to create plugins or to create resources, icons, illustrations, and so on. But right now, most creators, what they would do is that they would create their own website, and such as us, we or Vectory or Blush, it's a great tool for illustrations, and they have to create their own subscriptions or their own payment system, and everyone have to go to their own website. And for a lot of us, we can do it. We have the resources to do it, but for many creators, they wish all of that can be embedded into the design tool itself. But in terms of the number of features, if you compare Sketch to Figma, I would say that Figma is ahead, surprisingly. I mean, I wouldn't say that like a year ago, but today Figma is ahead. As you can see, it has a lot more features. You can have creators, you have a community, you can follow people, you can download, you have stats, you have analytics, you have the ecosystem built in, versus in Sketch is a little bit disjointed. Not saying that the plugins are not good in Sketch. I think the plugins are just equally amazing in Sketch, but I just wish that a lot of those things would be built in, and they would have maybe some sort of a community aspect to it. I know it's a lot of work. Obviously, I think Figma has spent tremendous amount of resources creating this. But as I've shown in the past live streams, we've been using a lot of resources from the community. So I'm just going to catch up with some comments, make sure that I'm not missing any key comments. All right, so I think that's good. All right. So plugins, it's not a big difference between the two. If you enjoy having a fully featured community that's building a design tool, go for Figma. But if you don't really care about that aspect and you prefer to visit websites and to go back and forth and download them, install them, I think Sketch is a great option. Furthermore, what I love about Sketch as well is that they have this runner app, which allows you to search for plugins, and that's built in the commands. So you're going to be able to search for like content generator, which is an awesome plugin. You're going to be able to install from here, and Unsplash, you can install it, you can search it, and it's a really good plugin because it allows you to run a number of commands, insert, apply. It's a really, really good tool, which is why it has inspired even Figma to come up with their own system. So for example, in Figma now, you can do command / and notice that this is almost exactly the same UI. In fact, fun fact, probably the person I don't know, I haven't really caught up with the person working on this one, but I know that one of the founders of Sketch Runner went to work to Figma. So shout out to you if you're listening. So yeah, this is something that I love, to be able to search these commands. And right now we can't really search for plugins, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you can actually. Okay, so random name generator. Okay, that's interesting. There's a lot of development, so I can't be caught up to every single new changes, but it seems that we can search for plugins that you haven't installed yet. And UI kit, for example, let's see. Okay, maybe not UI kit, but definitely plugins. Let me see if I can search for plugins that I haven't installed yet, just to confirm it. So for example, brand fetch, I haven't installed this one. Brand fetch. Okay, I cannot find it. So maybe it has to be plugins that you have installed. But it would be nice to be able to search plugins that you have not installed, or UI kits that you have not installed, templates, and so on. So that would be amazing. The same way in Sketch, where in Runner, you're going to be able to search for plugins that you haven't installed yet. So I think that could be a great idea for Figma, right? If you agree with me, please send me comment down below so that the community and Sketch and Figma, if anyone working at those companies are listening, they're going to be able to take those suggestions, and we all benefit as designers and developers. So this is great. What else I can show? All right, so I'm going to get into the UI a little bit later. But we have plugins, and I show you how to get plugins. We have data, I'm going to show you, and then we have library. Now, this is the part that I do believe that Sketch really shine. And it's not Figma's fault. In fact, and this is specific to iOS. If you search for iOS UI kit, the thing is, Apple only makes their UI kit, which are absolutely amazing, for Sketch, XD, Photoshop, and not Figma. And this is not Figma's fault. It's just that Apple does not provide. But those UI kits are so good. And if you look here, you can add this library. I believe it comes by default when you install Sketch, if I remember correctly. And whenever there's an update, it shows you a button for updating, which is also amazing. And it's great because Apple does it, which means it's completely using auto layout. It's using SF symbols. As you can see here, if I go to SF symbols versus, as I've shown in the previous live stream, it's not exactly integrated with SF symbols, even the one that was created by the community. So for example, I can copy here and I can go to override, and boom, I change it using SF symbol. So this is made by Apple, which means that they figured out all of the adaptiveness, the light mode, the dark mode, using using different options and overrides. So from 2 tab to 3 tabs, and it's fantastic. So again, not Figma's fault, but I would say that this is a huge plus for me as an iOS designer when it comes to create UI for iOS. Before I forget, I do want to mention that since Sketch has been around for a while, there are communities that have been around for a while. One of them that I really like is called Sketchy App Sources, where you can find, the UI kit that you find in the Figma community. Well, in Sketch, you would go to a website like Sketchy App Sources, and you're going to be able to download these resources and open them in Sketch. So that's fantastic. And because they've been more mature, you're going to find more resources across the websites on the internet. Versus in Figma, you would find them mostly in the community, which is not a bad thing. So I just wanted to show you the pros and cons and what you can do on either of those two platforms. So plugins, cloud, we covered that. We covered real-time collaboration. All right, so let's talk about adaptive layout. And I think both of them, are doing an amazing job, I would say. They have matured quite consistently. I really love auto layout in Figma, and they have a similar feature in Sketch. So if I create a new device here, a new screen, so maybe not this one. Oh, well, let's try. Okay, so we're gonna try with this. And another thing that I noticed, yes, you can use Sketch Runner to find, if you have the libraries installed. So in order to install the libraries, as I mentioned before, you have to go to Preferences. You have to install the libraries. either Angle library or the Apple UI kit. Once it's installed, you're going to be able to use Sketch Runner, and you're going to be able to insert, like for example, phone or purple or status bar. And here you're going to be able to find them like this. So yeah, I think this is the one that I want. I cannot drag, but I'm going to use this one. Double click on it, I believe. Yes. All right, so you can see I have my status bar here. I can resize it for a bigger screen, and I can change it to light mode or dark mode. So I was able to do that using Sketch Runner. Now, what I notice is that they do have an insert screen in Sketch. So you press C, and you have access to this search symbols, which is really amazing. It does an even better job. So for example, if I want to search for status bar, and it has this grid layout, I'm going to be able to find the preview, the description, and where it's coming from. So this one is coming from the Apple iOS UI kit, and I'm going to be able to drag and drop, let's say, the tab bar. I'm going to search for the tab bar. It's a little bit weird. Tab bar. Yeah, I'm getting my blue iMac in about 2 weeks, so I look forward to having the M1 computer, and hopefully my live stream is going to be a lot more performant. So as you can see, I was able to search for tab bar. I'm going to be able to drag it, or yeah, drag it to the layout, and there you go. So this is how you would create the tab bar, and I'm going to press C again, maybe the home indicator. Okay, this is a little bit slow for sure. But at least we have the preview. I think this is the one that I want. And well, you know, maybe not in this demo, but I'm sure there's a version where it includes the tab bar, and I can switch between light and dark mode. So portrait, and I would put it right here, and then I need some spacing here. So it should look about like this. And you know, you have access to, you know, a lot of the screens. I definitely suggest that you take a look at these sketch files. They're really, really good. Can I open it? Let me see. New from template, iOS app icon. So they have a bunch of templates. If you don't know, you go to File, New from Template. Some templates built into Sketch for iOS app, material design, prototyping tutorial, and so on. So this is kind of like their community, if you will. Hopefully they're working on something a little bit more full-fledged. But can I find that, or can I open the file? Let me just download it from Apple directly, and I'm going to show you how it looks like. So we're going to download the Sketch kit. I think this one. It's going to take a little bit of time. In the meantime, we're going to take a look at how we do adaptive layout. I have shown quite a bit about adaptive layout in Figma, and it's very similar. So let's say I have a card here. First of all, I'm going to create a card. Okay, I'm going to set it to around the corners, and let's say I have my text here. So work together. All right. And here's what I love about having the UI kit installed is that you can get the text styles from that UI kit. So for example, from that UI kit, which is a library, I'm going to be able to use one of these titles. So for example, I can use title 2, and Apple did all that for us, and I can switch between light and dark mode. So this is light mode, And voila. So I'm using the dynamic type, and I can also do the same with the large title. So I'm gonna go here and find large title, bold, light mode, and boom. So we can change this to today, for example, and you know, we have all the same basic features. I'm not gonna go over them because they're pretty basic, such as distancing. I gotta give credit where it's due. You know, Sketch has been around with these features that are absolutely essential in the design community, and they were the ones that really made these popular and essential in our workflow. So they're, you know, they change our lives basically, and I love them for that. So, okay, now I have my text here. I can duplicate the text. I can use the different text. So obviously you want to have a title, and then you have a smaller text, such as subheadline, for example. And I'm going to copy this text here. All right. And we're going to make this more dynamic. And let's take a look at data. So now I want to bring an image. And maybe I want to group all of this together. Command G. So all the same features, the same shortcuts mostly. And the one thing that I do prefer about Sketch is the way they're doing masking. So all you need to do is use any layer, versus in Figma you have to, you know, you have to create a separate layer for masking, which is really annoying for me. But you know, that's a bit nitpicking on my side. So let me remove the border. You can change the default style for the border and stuff like that. And okay, so this is where Sketch has some more features. For example, they have data built in. So here I can select an element, and I go to fill, and I can click on this stack icon. And so I can use sketch data or unsplash data. And here I can get search photo. And for example, I can search for mountains, for example. And okay, it's going to generate the photo. And this is all built in Sketch, which is amazing. Now, of course, there are plugins in Figma that can do the same, namely the Unsplash plugin. But in Sketch, it's all built in, which is amazing. So the same way with the avatar, I can create an avatar, and I can go to the stack icon, sketch data, faces, and it generates the face for me. So this is fantastic for content creation. And yeah, you know, what I do appreciate is the fact that it's built in the main UI versus having to rely on a third-party plugin, which typically is a modal, and it's less enticing to use. It takes a lot more steps. But this is the data feature of Sketch, and I really like it. Not saying that Figma cannot have the same thing, but to be able to have that built in is very nice, on top of the fact that, you know, Apple has the UI kit for us, which is amazing. All right, so let's take a look at the adaptive layout. Now, if you want to do adaptive layout, you need to create a component first. So I group the entire card. Maybe I can add some, I don't know, maybe I can make this one white, and maybe white. Oops, it does not accept white as a text. I got used to it in Figma, but it's FFF like this. And maybe I can add some drop shadow. And 10 and 40, and we can make it a little bit less. So a little bit like this. And now we have the group. I'm gonna turn this into a component just the same way as in Figma. I'm gonna click on this little diamond, which is gonna turn it into a component. this is where you're gonna set your adaptive layout. So I'm gonna name this card, and I'm gonna set the layout itself. So how do I want this to grow, vertically or horizontally? And you know, what kind of alignment that I want. So for example, here I want the card to expand vertically, which means that I'm gonna go top to bottom layout and create. So when I do that, Sketch is gonna do the adaptiveness for me. So if I have more lines of text, so more line of text, and I'm gonna put this in another line. See how it expands the card automatically, including the title, I believe, if I set it properly. Yes, it does. So go far. So voila, that's how you do adaptive layout. And just like in Figma, you have the same, so the constraints, and you can edit that. The way they do symbols the same as component in Figma, you're gonna have to go to the symbols, or they should have a button that lets you do that, or you can edit that. I think there's a button, if I remember, edit source. And this is where you're gonna find all your symbols, and you're gonna edit this from its own page. So this is slightly different from Figma, where your component has to be edited directly in the design file or in the current page. So that's slightly different. Takes some time to get used to. I can't say that I prefer one or the other, because there are pros and cons to the two. But in terms of auto layout, what I do appreciate from Figma is that you can duplicate an element and you can automatically stack those elements, just like in code, versus in Sketch, you kind of have to do it manually. I can't really duplicate another element, it's going to expand automatically, but I can expand the content. Maybe someone can correct me. I can't really duplicate this element, and for that to keep stacking and adding as a separate element. So that's kind of like some small differences between the two. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that's a big problem. As you can see from, you know, from the UI kit from Apple, they do a really good job at allowing you to use overrides. For those who don't know what overrides is when you can change the instance of a component. So you can create a copy and then you can change the content, and without having to redo it from scratch every single time. So we have a symbol here, and I can switch from 2 tab to 3 tabs. Obviously, Figma has the same thing. I'm not saying that Figma doesn't have it, but Sketch does have it, and it's fantastic. So you can change the SF symbol, the text. You can't really change from here, which annoys me a little bit, because in Figma I got used to be able to change the override directly in, you know, in the instance. But here you have to do most of that work here. Sometimes you can change it here, but not always. That's what I'm noticing. So for example, like I can't really change it here, especially when it's a symbol. So it's a little bit confusing there for me. Let's see. All right, so let's see what we can cover more. We covered the data, we covered the adaptiveness of the layout. So for those who don't know constraints, you can just set this to top left, and when you set it to top left and you resize the screen, it's gonna stick to top left. Otherwise, you can see that it resizes everything, and sometimes it affects the aspect ratio, which means that you're gonna need to edit the source. So I'm gonna go to edit source, and I'm gonna make sure that it's going to use the pin to edges rather than, you know, if you don't do that, it's going to resize itself, and that can be a problem sometimes. So you have the fixed size thing, so you can pin it from the left, from the top, and this one maybe you want to do it from top or from the bottom. That's entirely up to you. And if you do that, you can also set this image to always have the same size. So you're gonna have like a fixed size for the height, and you're gonna go back and you're gonna see this time, wait a second, this is not supposed to happen. Yeah, you can set like fixed size for the avatar. And now when I resize, the avatar does not have a problem anymore. So this is how you do adaptive layout in Sketch, and Figma would be very, very similar. And so that's covering adaptive layout, and especially useful when you're dealing with multiple screens of different sizes. Like here, if you're using the UI kit from Apple, all of that work is already done for you. But if you're creating a new component, you mostly have to do it from scratch, and you have to deal with your own use cases. So yes, that's a good point. There's one person commenting that Sketch right now is only for Mac, and I think that's, if you're using a Mac mostly, that's fine. But if you're in a team that has developers and designers working on Windows, then that might be a problem, in which case Figma is definitely the better option for you. At the same time, in terms of performance, so maybe I can cover performance in the two, because this is one of the things that at the time, like a year ago, I thought that Sketch was getting slower and slower, and they were not addressing the performance issues that I had at the time. And I believe from my use today, it's getting better. And also, one thing I want to say is that from our experience working on all of these mockups that you see in Figma, so all of these mockups that are completely in vector, so all of these are shapes, and from our experience, Figma definitely have trouble with gradients, with performance. As you can see, it's not that much better. And I hope both tools are going to do better in the future, because performance is one of those things that if you make it better, you're not going to notice at first, but as you use it on a daily basis, every single hour of the day, you will notice it, and it's going to really boost your workflow and your speed as a designer. And so from my team, from their comments, what I can say is that they do tend to prefer Sketch when they're working on complex graphics such as this one, right? Such as this one. But for UI, they do prefer Figma because of the collaborative nature, and because of some of the features that they came out with, such as auto layout, such as variants, such as interactive components that you just came out with, and prototyping. Not saying that there's a huge difference between the two, but just enough for people to prefer Figma over Sketch in terms of doing UI design. But in terms of graphics, and I would say that Sketch has the upper hand for creating really complex gradients and background blur and stuff like that. So that's just like minimal differences between the two. Let's talk a little bit about prototyping. So prototyping is fairly basic on Sketch right now. Unless you're using one of the tools, I cannot catch up with all the tools right now in Sketch, but there are some tools and plugins that allow you to extend the prototyping. But with the ones that are built in, if I remember correctly, you have to use a connection or something, and you only have some basic presets for prototyping, such as sliding and stuff like that. Versus in Figma, you have Smart Animate. So maybe I can find that. Yeah, the performance is not helping me right now on my live stream. So let me create a new screen, and let me create a rectangle. So typically when you prototype, you duplicate the first screen into the second screen, and this is where you're going to create a connection between the two. And to create a connection, they changed the UI, so I don't really remember where the connection for the I don't prototype much in the design tool, as you can see, but I do want to show you that there are some limitations. Versus in Figma is a little bit more, because they have Smart Animate, they have interactive components, which makes prototyping really awesome. Okay, this is not looking good. I don't remember. um, all right, so maybe hotspot. Okay, it's called hotspot. So I click on hotspot and I click here, and then I select this from this screen to this screen. And from here, you can see that the prototyping allows you to have no animation, slide from left or right or top to bottom. And that's basically it. Maybe someone can correct me on this one. I don't think they have the ability to do like a smart animate, where you would have the animation of this square, but instead, if you click on preview, it does like the built-in sort of slide that you see on iOS. And you can control the direction. But I do appreciate this little window here, where in Figma, one of the big pain points that I have is that when you preview, it goes to a completely new screen, and it's just like really hard to do back and forth between the two. And hopefully Figma is going to improve that experience. The best one I would say is Framer in terms of prototyping. They have everything. You can do anything in Framer, which I love. And of course SwiftUI. So prototyping, if I have to judge between the two applications, I would say Figma. Well, at the lowest, I would say Sketch, which has the most basic, and then Figma, and then Framer, and then if you can learn code and you can get into development, then SwiftUI. And also with Framer, I think Adobe XD also is known to have really, really good prototyping options. So maybe I can do another video for Adobe XD, but today I'm going to focus on Sketch and Figma. Yeah, it would be great when dynamic components are going to be launched on Figma. Right now, it's still in the beta, so most people cannot experience it at the moment. So let's talk about browser and the offline experience, because this is a really important topic when deciding to use one or the other. So in Sketch, it's a native app, which means that it's easy to work offline. You have access to all the features, and all the files are stored locally on your computer, which means that you don't need the internet to be able to, to go full on your design. Versus in Figma, if you want to work offline, you have some limitation. And if you want to know about that, they have a full page explaining what you can do offline. So this is a lot better than in the past. I remember in the past, you couldn't do anything at all offline. Nowadays, you can do some of the features offline. So if you want to know what you can do offline, you can read this, and there's an icon that shows you if you're online or offline. And when you're offline and you're working on your Figma design, you obviously you're gonna be able to keep working, like creating shapes and editing shapes, UI and stuff like that. And then none of that is going to be synchronized to the cloud until you go back online. And that's kind of the difference. So as soon as you jump online, it's going to start doing that. So I just forgot to make my avatar smaller. Sorry about that. Okay. So what you can do offline, you can create layers, frames, basic shapes, vectors. You can use components that are local to your file. So as long as it's not like a theme library, I believe from the cloud, you're gonna be able to use your local components. You can make changes, edit. You can run plugins that don't rely on the browser API. So anything that you have installed, I believe, should be fine. And you can save your Figma file format to your computer. What you cannot do offline is to access to your cloud file. So for example, when I go here in Figma and I want to go to the community or my list of files, I won't be able to do that if I'm offline, which is a problem because if you're used to working in Sketch, you mostly save your files on your local computer. Or at least that's what we've been used to. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I know that Sketch is kind of like in between right now. Sometimes you can save your files to the cloud. Sometimes it's saved to your computer. I do believe that they do both, which means that even if you're not in the cloud or connected to the internet, you have a copy of that. Maybe someone can correct me on this one. But Sketch is definitely better and have more ability to work offline. So you won't be able to do this in Figma and browse your cloud files when you're offline. And going back here, you cannot create new files, so that's kind of bad. You cannot create new files, open files that you don't already have open. So if you don't create a new file yet and you go offline, you won't be able to create a new one. That's pretty bad. Receive updates. So whenever there's a team update from your files in your team library, you're not gonna be able to get those updates. Search components, install new plugins, version history, and have the collaborative feature. Of course, you're gonna need the internet for that. Figma does also autosave, which I believe Sketch doesn't, unless you close. And it always says like edited, so you're gonna have. So a lot of designers like myself, we're used to saving. So Command S. And whenever we go back to Figma, we're like, oh my God, Figma keeps telling me to stop saving. It auto saves, right? So it keeps telling us this. And it's just a fun thing because, some of us, we're just used to the way Sketch does it. All right. Let me see if okay, let's talk about pricing. Because Sketch, this is also a new huge update for Sketch. Traditionally, the way that Sketch works, I'm gonna go to their website. If you go to pricing, traditionally you have to buy a license, and they have completely moved their model to subscription. As you can see now, it's $9 per editor. This is the same thing as Figma. So in Figma it's the same, except that in Figma I believe it's $12 if I remember correctly. Right, so in Figma, it's a little bit more expensive, $12 per month, per editor per month. For some people, that's actually a big deal because, it's $3 per month per person. So yeah, $9 here, and Figma is $12. Now Figma has a free option. So if you're an individual, you have unlimited files in draft, and yeah, unlimited editors on 3 team files, 1 team project, 30-day version history, cloud storage unlimited, and you also have viewers and commenters unlimited. So you have a really, really good plan for free. So if you don't have a team, you don't work with anyone, you're gonna be fine. Versus in Sketch, I believe that the way that they work, they do have a 30-day free trial, which means that you can do everything in that 30-day period, and you're gonna be able to design and work with a team for that period. So is there no free plan? I guess not. I'm not sure. This is fairly new, so I haven't really gone through all of this stuff, but it would be interesting to know. But let's talk about a subscription model. So $9 versus $12, and it's monthly, and they have the license. Well, previously they have the license model, which means, what is the license model? You buy a license and you have access to 1 year of updates. What updates means is that if Sketch comes up with a new version of Sketch, such as from version 70 to version 80, and let's say your license has expired, you're still going to be able to work on the version 70, which is what you paid for. But when it comes to version 80, which is new, after your license expires, you have to pay for an upgrade to your license. You have to renew that license in order to access those new upgrades, those new updates. So that's the license model, and they have done that for the past 7-8 years. Maybe not like the new renewal thing, but they definitely had like a license base usage. But now they're moving towards subscription. And I believe that subscriptions is what allows you to set real-time collaboration and have a cloud. So you're going to be able to save your files in the cloud. If you don't have a subscription, you cannot save your files in the cloud, if I'm not mistaken, and you won't be able to do the real-time collaborations. And I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to have the browser-based design tool in the future, which makes it even more attractive to have a subscription base. So this is a signal to me that they're completely changing from their license-based model to their subscription-based model. And I think it makes a lot of sense because, you know, as a team, it was definitely painful to work with the license model because, you know, every time that we had someone new, they had to, you know, you had to create a new license, and sometimes we have to be in sync with a version of Sketch, and then we have to renew it. You have to go to the license manager. It's really a lot of pain. Versus in Figma, all I need to go to is to go to the billing and just enable editor mode or viewer mode for each person in my team. And so definitely less painful to have the subscription model in Figma, to be honest. So this is actually good news, and it makes a lot of sense for the future of Sketch. And I'm really, really excited to see all the new features that they're going to come up with, how they're going to catch up with some of those great features that Figma has matured over the years, such as real-time collaboration, cloud storage. I know from experience that their cloud storage in the past year was not the best experience, especially as you can see, it's a little bit disjointed from you know, the design tool itself versus the browser. It doesn't feel like they're two of the same app, if you will. It feels like there's a lot of confusion between the two. And if you invite someone to view your file, they have to come here. They don't go to your design tool. If they want to inspect it, you have to share it from here or from the design tool. And it's just like there's like a see latest update. Those things are kind of weird to me, and they can definitely be better in the future. As you know, Figma shows us that experience is absolutely brilliant and holistic. So that's kind of where Sketch is still lacking at the moment. But I think once they get past that, they're gonna be able to be a fantastic contender and easily, I think, be maybe almost on the same level as Figma. But right now, I would say that Figma has been killing it. If you talk to most designers, they will tell you that Figma is the tool to use. But yeah, you know, you have to weigh in the pros and cons. All the things that I have discussed so far in this live stream, you know, Sketch definitely has its strengths. And the pricing, you know, the offline mode, the maturity of the design tool, you know, for some things like graphics, the performance, and the UI is really beautiful in dark mode. And, you know, all of those things are definitely in Sketch favor. But if you're talking about collaboration, cloud, if you're talking about version control, you're talking about commenting, feedback, if you're talking about community, and all of that experience to be browser-based and across platforms between Windows and Mac, and browser and the Mac app, then Figma takes the cake on this one. So that's where we are at the moment. I believe this is going to change within the next 12 months. And at that time, then we can review it again. So I'm going to be able to take some questions from you guys. And I hope this is useful and enlightening for some. And let's take a look at the questions. By the way, if you enjoy this content, please subscribe and give us a like. So I know that you appreciate this kind of content, and also you let YouTube knows that maybe we should see more of this kind of content in YouTube at large. So I really appreciate the likes. All right, so let me take some questions here. I calculated the cost and it comes down to sort of the same value as we'd get from Sketch, Vision, and Zeppelin. Yes, so that's really cool as well. In Sketch, you have to rely on some of these tools such as InVision and Zeppelin for handoff. And InVision, for those who don't know, you can do some of that prototyping further and some of that inspection better if you don't want to use like the way Sketch does it in terms of their cloud UI. In Figma, you have all of that built in. So yes, it's a little bit more expensive, $15, $12 per month versus $9, but you have to price in some of these features, such as, you know, what it would cost to use Zeppelin, what it would cost to use maybe Dropbox, what it would cost to use InVision, or some of the other apps that you might be using on top of Sketch. So that's just one thing you need to take into consideration. Can you talk about learning curve for both complete beginners? So in terms of learning design, please watch my other live streams. There's one about designing iOS from scratch. There's about a lot of like my design process. So you go to into history. I also have in the links in my description right here, you're gonna be able to see, well, what kind of courses that you can take for UI design and what kind of courses you can take for SwiftUI. And so please do that if you want to learn how to be a design techniques from me or from the community. So can you speak about the branch feature in Figma? So I haven't really tested that much. It's still in beta. And to be honest, branching is a little bit more pro than what we need, to be honest, as a team. So probably is really useful for big companies that have a lot of like designers that might conflict with each other and stuff like that, or big companies. But for us, we haven't really found the need to do that. I think that the version history and the collaboration is enough for us to enjoy Figma and to not worry about the different versions and the conflicts and stuff and so on. So maybe I can explore that in the future, but for now I can't really speak much to that. Biggest issue with Figma is design versioning and offline editing, and that's about it. Yes, I agree. So I'm not sure about design versioning because Sketch has its own issues. I know that Sketch used to have sort of like the time machine. I don't know if they still have time machine. They do have version history with their cloud feature, I believe, if I remember. Yes, so they have like a version history, as you can see. But Figma has the same. So I can't say that Sketch has an upper hand here. Why Figma does not support RTL? I'm not sure what RTL means, so maybe you can develop on that. Do you mean like real-time collaboration? Is that what? No, it cannot be. So do you know a good plugin for mockups for Figma? So both Figma and Sketch pretty much have the same. You have Vectory, you have, well, our own, which is called Angle. I don't remember the name, but there's a bunch for mockups. There's Rotato and a bunch of others. I don't remember. But the main ones that I use is definitely Vectory, Angle, and Rotato. Do you think it's possible for someone to build an iOS app starting by learning Figma and SwiftUI without being part of a team? Absolutely. You don't need to be part of a team to design in Figma and then work with SwiftUI. The team feature allows you to work better as a team. So for example, if you have a client, if you have teammates that are designers or developers, you need to hand off your design. That's what the team feature is about. That's what the collaboration is about. And if you have like content editors, you don't necessarily want your content editor to say, hey, can you change this title for me? Instead, you just tell them, you share that link to them, and they're going to be able to go directly and edit the copy themselves without knowledge of design. So that's what the team feature is about. The team library is about, to have a design system as well. So nowadays, a lot of designers, they would use design system instead. Especially in startups and teams of 5+ designers, you're gonna have the libraries, the team libraries, just the same way that we have in Sketch. You know, these libraries here. So in Figma, you would have the assets, and you're going to be able to publish your changes to your team and enable what library that you want to enable for your document. And if you have those enable, then you're going to see the components from those different theme libraries, and also the textiles and the gradients and the colors. And the same for here, as I've shown with the iOS UI kit, where you're going to be able to have the quick symbols here, and you see your libraries you're going to be able to import, such as the alert, for example, like this. And yeah, that's fantastic. So that's why you need a team feature, but you can absolutely do everything on your own for sure. It's actually like Sketch, Abstract, InVision, and Zeppelin in one, absolutely. In that sense, you are saving money. If you're using all of these tools together, then yes, by using Figma, you will save a lot of money. Right to left. Okay. Let me go back to your question about RTL. Okay, so I'm not familiar with this one. That's a really good point. Right to left UI. And so Sketch does support RTL? That's a really good point. Can you give any tips for creating dark mode iOS apps? So again, you have to go to my live streams. I cover dark mode quite a bit. There's actually a video called, dark mode. So definitely take a look at that one. All right, so let me scroll a little bit further to see if I'm missing any important questions. And by the way, comment in the live chat if you prefer Sketch or Figma. I would love to hear your feedback. Just type Figma or type Sketch if you prefer one or the other. So let's see. What are your thoughts on Figma being made paid? Only 3 free project. I don't know if there's really a limitation of just 3 free project, because in a project you can have a lot of pages, you can have a lot of, because a project you can have as many files as you want. It's not like you need to create so many projects, right? So you have 3 team files, 1 team project. So it used to be 3 team project though, or something like that. I'm a bit confused, to be honest, because we are completely paid. So they have been changing their system a little bit over the years. So I'm a little bit confused as to what are some of these restrictions. And but right now, as far as I'm concerned, here it says 3 team files, 1 team project, and unlimited files in draft, which is really a big deal, because in draft it's like you have no project. You can create as many files as you want. All right. Let's see. Okay, so we have definitely some votes here. We have Figma, Sketch, Figma, Figma. So right now, Sketch has some work to do. And if you're part of the Sketch team, take this as, good criticism, constructive criticism. I think you guys are doing amazing, and I'm definitely rooting for Sketch because I've been with Sketch for so many years. We still use them. We still really love them. But what I can say is that Figma has been killing it lately, and at the end of the day, we need to help each other. We need to inspire each other, and we need to come up with the best solutions. We need to come up with the best features. And competition is good sometimes. And in this case, I think we push each other in the right direction. So if I see at the state of Sketch right now, which I'm really excited about, we're gonna see in 6 to 12 months, maybe we can create another video and we can have another vote. But right now, as I mentioned before, I think Figma is definitely, the biggest vote in the market at the moment. But hopefully this video enlightened to some of those who haven't used Sketch in a while as to what Sketch has done over the past 12 months. Like, Real-time collaboration, as you can see, is amazing. Cloud is definitely halfway there. And you know, like data, you know, they have some prototyping features, and the UI is really nice. So you have light mode and dark mode, and you know, the ecosystem is as healthy as ever. They have a beautiful website. They have a great team. So I think this is for the best. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.